Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a delight to welcome you this Sunday morning to our fourth plenary session of the Shangri-La Dialogue. Perhaps I could open by thanking on behalf of the IISS and all the delegates to the 13th Shangri-La Dialogue, the President of the Republic of Singapore and the Astana for the marvelous reception and dinner that was offered to us yesterday evening. This morning's fourth plenary is on the theme Major Power Perspectives on Peace and Security in the Asia Pacific. And we will have two presentations, one, as it were, from China and one from Russia. We were hoping that Tarun Vijay, a senior parliamentarian of the now ruling BJP party, would be with us this morning also to offer his own personal perspectives on India and the Asia Pacific. He's a very prominent BJP politician and close to the new Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But last night he was recalled to New Delhi in order to assist in the continuing procedures of forming and establishing the new government in India. So he asked me personally to send his regrets to the Shangri-La Dialogue for the fact that he wasn't able to be with us this morning, but told me that he will be reporting fulsomely to his parliamentary and other colleagues on this year's Shangri-La Dialogue, and will, I'm certain, encourage the strong Indian delegation to the 2015 Shangri-La Dialogue that we all look forward to. That said, we have two very major powers represented at this fourth plenary session, and each will speak in the order in which they're listed in the program. And then as we proceeded in the last day, we'll take questions and comments from the floor and have a dialogue on both the issues that they will have raised and perhaps some issues that they didn't have an opportunity to speak about in their formal remarks. I was delighted when I was in Beijing in March to have an extended meeting. I think it was an hour and a half or 2 hours with Lieutenant General Wang, Guanzhong, the Deputy Chief of Staff of the General Staff Department, People's Liberation Army. And it's with great pleasure that I invite him to take the podium and address the Shangri-La Dialogue.
Thank you, Dr. Chipman. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express my sincere appreciation to the host for inviting me to attend the Shangri-La Dialogue 2014. Shangri-La symbolizes a beautiful, serene, harmonious, and prosperous dreamland. To live in such a peaceful, tranquil, and wonderful world is the shared aspiration of people all across the Asia Pacific. Today, I'd like to take the opportunity to share with you the values, policies, and practices of China for maintaining peace and security in the Asia Pacific region. Not long ago, The fourth summit of the Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia was held in Shanghai, China. At the summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping put forward the security concept for Asia, featuring common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. This concept, which is a profound summary of Asia's historical experiences as well as the cherished aspiration for the future, has been widely acclaimed by the Asian countries. Asia today is in a critical period of development. It is increasingly becoming a community of common interest, destiny, and responsibility. The stability of Asia is a blessing for world peace, and the rejuvenation of Asia is a boon for world development. The security of China is closely linked to that of Asia. China advocates and implements a security concept for Asia in real earnest and stands ready to work with other countries to pursue Asian security that is established, shared by, and win-win to all. China is a constructive, proactive, and positive force for Asia's peace and security. China pursues the path of peaceful development. Peaceful development is a strategic choice as well as a long-term and abiding strategy made by China based on its historical and cultural traditions, historical experiences, lessons learned in the rise of major powers in the past, the reality of our time, and the fundamental interests of China. China sticks to open development, cooperative development, and win-win development. China strives for self-development through maintaining a peaceful international environment and in turn contributes to regional and world peace with its own development. China is committed to building a harmonious Asia as well as an amicable world of lasting peace and common prosperity. China will never contend for or seek hegemony and foreign expansion. China adheres to peaceful development, which is China's major contribution to security in Asia. The tremendous achievements of China's peaceful development constitute a positive factor of critical importance to the security of Asia. China upholds the banner of fairness and justice. China believes that all countries, regardless of size, wealth, and strength, should have the equal rights to independently choose their own social systems and development paths. We need to learn from each other to offset our own shortcomings and oppose interfering in other countries' internal affairs. All countries should enjoy equal participation in regional security affairs. We need to strengthen coordination on the basis of mutual respect and oppose the attempt by any country to dominate regional security affairs. All countries should respect and accommodate the legitimate security concerns of others and enjoy common security through mutual accommodation. We oppose the practices of flexing up military alliances against a third party, resorting to the threat or use of force, or seeking so-called absolute security of one's own at the cost of the security of others. China advocates dialogue and cooperation. China upholds that all countries should enhance strategic mutual trust, reduce misgivings, and coexist in harmony through dialogue and communication. We should continuously strengthen and expand areas of cooperation, take innovative approaches, and seek peace and security through cooperation. All countries should respect each other's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity, and resolve disputes peacefully through negotiations. China stands for coordinated progress of security and development. In China's perspective, development lays the foundation for security, which in turn provides the conditions for development. Development is the most important security and the master key to resolving regional security issues. China pursues a neighborhood diplomacy that aims at bringing harmony, security, and prosperity to its neighbors. China practices the principles of amity, sincerity, mutual benefit, and inclusiveness. We work to promote the sound interaction between regional economic cooperation and security cooperation, and to maintain both traditional and non-traditional security in a coordinated way. In 2013, China contributed nearly 30% of the world's economic growth and over 50% of the growth in Asia. China will continue to promote sustainable security through sustainable development and work together with other countries for lasting peace and prosperity in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, China always pursues a defense policy that is defensive in nature. The PLA is endeavoring to contribute to maintaining regional security. We actively conduct friendly military exchanges and cooperation with countries in the Asia-Pacific. China's military-to-military cooperation with other Asia-Pacific countries is showing unprecedented dynamism. We have established defense consultation and dialogue mechanisms with 13 neighboring countries. In recent years, we have held over 50 joint exercises and drills with other Asia-Pacific countries. A sound momentum has been witnessed in high-level visits, professional exchanges, and personnel training. Overall, we are enjoying military cooperation in the Asia-Pacific that covers all dimensions, broad areas, and multiple levels. We continue to add to the security contents of the comprehensive strategic coordinative partnership with Russia, build towards a new model of military-to-military relationship with the United States, and enhance friendly military security cooperation with India and other major Asia-Pacific countries. The robust military cooperation among major powers plays an important role in maintaining regional stability.
We extensively participate in regional multilateral defense and security cooperation. We are actively engaged in security cooperation with Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia, ADMM+, the ASEAN Regional Forum, and China-ASEAN Framework. We make joint efforts to fight terrorism, extremism, and separatism, conduct disaster relief operations, safeguard the security of land and sea routes, and promote a security architecture in line with the common interests of regional countries. Not long ago, we successfully hosted the annual meeting of the Western Pacific Naval Symposium. Participants of the meeting agreed on the revised version of the Code of Conduct for Unplanned Encounters at Sea, contributing to the prevention of accidents at sea in the region. We are committed to properly handle disputes over territory, sovereignty, and maritime rights and interests. China has settled, through friendly consultations, land border demarcation with 12 out of 14 of its neighbors, and completed the delimitation of Beibu Gulf with Vietnam. The PLA has set up 64 border meeting stations. In 2013, over 2,000 meetings were held between Chinese and neighboring border troops in these stations. We are actively engaged in maintaining maritime security and stability in the neighboring area. 16 joint patrols of Beibu Gulf have been carried out by China and Vietnam. In 2002, China and ASEAN countries signed the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea and jointly set forth the principle that all disputes over territory and jurisdiction should be solved peacefully through friendly consultation and negotiation between sovereign states directly involved in the disputes. The PLA actively supports the implementation of the DOC and pushes forward the consultation on the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea with a view to maintaining security and stability in the South China Sea. While firmly safeguarding its sovereignty and legitimate interests, China has demonstrated utmost sincerity and patience in its commitment to settling disputes peacefully through consultations and negotiations with parties directly involved. China has never threatened to use force and has never taken provocative actions. We will never accept provocation by others under the pretext of positive pacifism that stirs up tension for their selfish interests. Here I would like to divert from my prepared script of speech and respond to speeches made by Mr. Abe and Mr. Hagel, and share some of my personal views. Actually, what I'm going to say is not included in my prepared transcript. If you get the English version of my speech, you will see that what I'm going to see is actually not in the script. That is to say, originally, I only wanted to share with our ideas and proposition of China, and I do not want to focus on disputes and differences. And you will see that in my script, there is no content of what I'm about to say. But during the meeting, the previous meetings or sessions, and after listening to the speeches of Mr. Abe and Mr. Hagel, I have to share with you some of my comments. After the speech of Mr. Abe, a foreign friend said to me that you should keep calm. And after the speech of Mr. Hagel, this foreign friend said to me again that you have to continue to keep calm. He said to me that the future prospect of a country does not depend on words, but depend on real actions. I think this foreign friend cares a lot for me and for China. In particular, he suggested that the eventual prospect of a country depends not on words but on deeds and actions. Is indeed very relevant and correct. But I have to express gratitude, regret to my foreign friend. In spite of your suggestion, I have to say a few words, a limited few words. I will not use most of the time of my speech to criticize. I have two considerations. In China, we have a saying that it is not polite to reciprocate. And second, this is a Shangri-La Dialogue meeting. That means we need to exchange ideas and have discussions. You will speak out your views and I will speak of mine, and we will exchange ideas, and the truth will be shown, demonstrated through discussions. Since Mr. Abe and Mr. Hagel already shared with us their views from the perspective of discussion, I would also like to share our views about their remarks and speeches. I think the Chinese delegation and Chinese outside this conference room and many foreigners, foreign friends, have this feeling that the speeches of Mr. Abe and Mr. Hagel are a provocative action against China. Some foreign friends said to me that Mr. Abe, as the Prime Minister of Japan, and Mr. Hagel, as the Secretary of Defense of two major countries, at this occasion made unwanted criticism against China. This is simply unimaginable. I think this friend is really right in saying that, and their speeches were completely out of my expectation. The speeches made by Mr. Abe and Mr. Hagel gave me the impression that they coordinated with each other. They supported each other. They encouraged each other. And they took the advantage of speaking first at the Shangri-La Dialogue and staged provocative actions and challenges against China. The speech by Mr. Abe actually is mainly targeted at China. He may name the name or not, but all the audience know that he was targeting China. Speech by Mr. Hagel was also mainly targeted at China, and all the audience would see that. Mr. Abe may name or not name, directly or indirectly attacked China, and Mr. Hagel was more direct and frank. He directly and openly criticized China on ungrounded grounds. If I am to compare the attitudes of Mr. Abe and Mr. Hago, I would prefer the attitude of Mr. Haga. It is better to be more direct. Mr. Abe was invited by the host of the dialogue to speak at the forum. He should promote peace and security in the Asia-Pacific region and provide constructive suggestions. But he went against the purpose of the dialogue and staged provocative actions. I think that act was unacceptable and not in line with the spirit of this dialogue. The speech by Mr. Hago was very frank. His frankness was actually not what I expected. I personally think that this speech by Mr. Hago is full of hegemony, full of words of threat and intimidation. It was a speech to abet destabilizing factors to create troubles and make provocations. It was not a constructive speech. Given the two speeches made by Mr. Abe and Mr. Hago, and if we look at the actions they have taken, we have to ask, who is actually making provocation and creating troubles, disputes, and differences? Concerning territory sovereignty, maritime rights and interests, China has never taken the first step to provoke troubles. China has only forced to respond to the provocative actions by other parties. And on bilateral and multilateral occasions and on the Shangri-La Dialogue, China has never been the first to provoke disputes and troubles. I think everyone understands who actually initiated disputes and troubles. Second, from the speeches made by Mr. Abe and Mr. Hago, we have to ask, who is actually assertive? It is the United States and Japan who are assertive in concerted efforts, not China. And China is only forced to make the minimum, lowest level response to their provocation. I will now come back to my prepared script.
We work hard to deliver public goods of security. In the aftermath of disasters such as the earthquake and tsunami in Japan and Typhoon Haiyan that hit the Philippines, the PLA promptly dispatched professional disaster relief forces and a naval hospital ship to participate in the relief missions. Since early 1990s, we have participated in 24 UN peacekeeping operations. In 1992, we dispatched the first non-combat unit to Cambodia. In 2013, we committed the first force protection unit to Mali. In all, the PLA has provided over 25,000 peacekeepers. which makes China the largest troop contributor among the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. Since the end of 2008, we have dispatched 45 ships in 17 task forces to the Gulf of Aden and waters off Somalia to carry out escorting operations. So far, we have provided escort for over 5,600 ships, half of which are foreign ships. Ladies and gentlemen, the PLA is ready to work with other militaries to make further contribution to regional and global peace and development. And to that end, I'd like to make the following proposals. First, to promote mutual strategic trust by deepening dialogue and exchanges. We will continue to work with regional countries to carry out in-depth bilateral and multilateral security dialogues and exchanges. And we welcome senior defense officials and scholars from regional countries to join us at the Xiangshan Forum in Beijing in this coming October. China will continue to step up dialogue, communication, and cooperation with ASEAN countries in the defense and security areas and support the development of the ASEAN community. Not long ago, China's State Councilor and Defense Minister General Chang Wanquan invited defense ministers of the ASEAN countries to China in 2015 for a special China-ASEAN defense ministers meeting. We expect the meeting to achieve significant results. Second, to promote common development by strengthening security cooperation. China has proposed to work with regional countries to build a Silk Road economic belt and a 21st century maritime Silk Road. The 2 major cooperation initiatives offer new opportunities for China and regional countries to achieve common development. Common development cannot be made without a secure environment. The building of the economic belt and the maritime Silk Road has to be driven by 2 wheels, the development and the security. The PLA is ready to work with regional countries to strengthen practical cooperation in counterterrorism, disaster relief, protection of sea lines of communication, and other fields, thus ensuring common prosperity of countries along the economic belt and the new Silk Road. Third, to jointly tackle challenges by promoting disaster relief cooperation. The Asia-Pacific is prone to various disasters. The importance of regional disaster relief cooperation is further highlighted by the recent search and rescue operations for the missing Malaysian airliner MH370. This year, in order to improve regional capacity building, we have arranged 5 bilateral and multilateral joint disaster relief exercises and drills of all services with regional countries. In 2015, China and Malaysia will co-host the 4th ARF disaster relief exercise to promote the capacity building of disaster relief in this region. Fourth, to maintain maritime security by highlighting maritime cooperation. The ocean serves the common interest of all Asia-Pacific countries. It is therefore the shared responsibility of all to strengthen maritime cooperation and maintain maritime security. China and Russia have conducted a number of joint naval exercises, including the recent successful Joint Maritime 2014 in the East China Sea. We are working with the United States to deepen military maritime consultations and actively advance the formulation of the standards of behavior for air and sea military safety at high seas. Not long ago, or very soon, Chinese Navy will participate in the RIMPAC exercise together with other countries. China and Indonesia have established a naval cooperation dialogue mechanism. The Chinese government has set up a China-ASEAN Maritime Cooperation Fund of 3 billion RMB to support joint maritime search and rescue operations, the establishment of hotlines for search and rescue, and other programs. China will continue to deepen multifaceted maritime security cooperation with its regional partners through joint exercises, ship visits, and maritime liaison mechanisms. 5. To effectively manage differences by establishing security mechanisms. In order to maintain regional security and stability, it is crucial to properly manage differences, ensure timely communication, and dispel misperceptions and miscalculations. China has established defense telephone links with Russia and the United States, and we are exploring the possibility of establishing similar telephone links with ASEAN countries. In order to effectively cope with disasters and agencies, communication and coordination should be strengthened among regional countries in an effort to establish an early warning and information sharing mechanism for disasters and emergencies. Ladies and gentlemen, peace does not come easily, and security should be cherished above all. Next year marks the 70th anniversary of the victory of the world's anti-fascist war. China will work with all other countries to safeguard the fruits of victory of the Second World War, as well as the post-war international order. We will never allow the ruthless fascist and militarist aggressions to stage a comeback. Major countries shoulder major responsibilities for maintaining security and stability of the Asia-Pacific, while medium and small countries can also play a constructive role. As a responsible major country, China is ready to join hands with all other Asia-Pacific countries to achieve mutual benefit and win-win results. Let us work together to create a bright future for the Asia-Pacific region. I thank you all.
General, thank you very much for your remarks. We noted the additional points you made in departure from your prepared text. I might reassure you that we'll ensure the full set of remarks as delivered are available on our webpage. I noticed near the end of your prepared remarks, you stated that China has established defense telephone links with Russia and the United States, and you are exploring the possibility of establishing similar telephone links with the ASEAN countries. And perhaps in the discussion we might explore whether China would additionally consider establishing direct telephone links with Japan, given comments made in the past by both Prime Minister Abe and Minister of Defense Onodera-san that Japan at least would welcome the possibility of having direct military-to-military exchanges with China for exactly the purpose that you mentioned, to avoid unfortunate incidents at sea or in the air. So perhaps that might be a subject we could usefully discuss when we move to the discussion period. But before that, we are really delighted to have with us today from Russia, the Deputy Minister of Defense, who we know very well at the IISS and has come regularly to these and other dialogues, Mr. Anatoly Antonov. The floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be with you, and on behalf of the delegation of the Russian Ministry of Defense, I would like to express our gratitude to the International Institute for Strategic Studies and the government of Singapore for your hospitality and excellent organization of this event. Russia has always been and will remain an integral part of the Asia-Pacific. Our primary goal is to ensure peace and security throughout the Asian-Pacific space, so vital for sustainable economic development and prosperity of our nations. It's a deliberate and consistent policy adopted by the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin. Today, most Asia-Pacific states have realized the need for creating a durable system of regional security based upon collective non-bloc foundations, principles of equality and indivisible security, mutual respect for concerns and interests of neighbors, strict compliance with the international law, and mandatory confidence building. Are we really able to cope with the threat of terrorism on our own, or alone handle the risk of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and means of their delivery, piracy, and religious extremism? Long-standing territorial disputes make things even worse. But the most dangerous threat for us is a nexus between terrorism and weapons of mass destruction. Asia-Pacific region is becoming an influential center and driving force of the global progress. But this process may be disrupted and even thrown back under the impact of so-called color revolutions. This new disaster struck many nations in the Middle East, North Africa, and our neighbors on the post-Soviet space. The color revolution phenomenon is becoming an essential factor destabilizing the political landscape. Under the pretext of democratic transition, internal social, economic, and political problems of some nations are being exploited to replace unwanted governments with externally controlled regimes. Such so-called missionary work can only bring chaos, drastic escalation of ethnic and religious contradictions, resulting in bloodshed among peaceful population. Just one example: Libya, a country on the verge of collapse following recent color upheavals. The unthinkable is actually happening. We are now witnesses the 20th century political plague of fascism resurging even in those countries which sacrificed millions of lives in their fight against the evil. This is what we see in Ukraine, exposed to the most violent phase of so-called color revolution, which aftermath is still raging. A few days ago, the country held its presidential election. This can be additional opportunity to immediately stop the punitive operation launched by Kyiv authorities against their own people. Today, I brought to you several copies of a video documentary from the streets of Ukrainian cities where children, women, and elderly people keep dying. Just about 7 minutes of appalling truth. Regretfully, some media tends to conceal the actual situation in Ukraine, placing all the deadly blames on Russia. Those who are willing to discover the truth can receive a CD from me to obtain proof. You see that my assistant, Alexander Roko, can provide you with such copies if you are interested. I am convinced that we need to stand together in order to counter this new threat. We have to figure out how to keep color revolutions away from our home, the Asia-Pacific region. There is another imminent challenge facing the Asia-Pacific nations. This is about so-called rebalances in military policy of global players towards the Asia-Pacific region. Behind these activities, there are visible attempts to establish regional order around oneself and for oneself. Efforts to deploy in the region elements of global missile defense rigidly linked to one nation's capability in terms of informational and technology clearly speak to the fact. We believe this will lead to undermining the fragile architecture of the emerging collective security system. We are opposed to any division of the Asia-Pacific nations into so-called primary or secondary ones, leaders and supporters. We are all equal. We have equal rights and obligations. At the same time, every nation is unique in terms of its history, cultural heritage, and traditions. When dealing with security issues, we prefer to rely on coordinated efforts under the aegis of the UN and its Security Council, regional and sub-regional structures. Such mechanisms are in place. These are East Asia summits, ASEAN Regional Forum for Security, Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building in Asia, ADMM+, joint activities within the framework of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We are disposed to enhance practical efficiency of military-to-military cooperation in the Asia-Pacific, both on bilateral and multilateral basis. In this regard, I would like to mention the ADMM+ forum, where our ministry is focusing on military medical cooperation. This year, we will co-chair this work with Thailand. Apparently, building our own interaction in this field is to benefit to all Asia-Pacific countries. We should work on implementation of mutual confidence-building measures in order to ease tension across the region, mainly by strengthening political dialogue between the military at all levels, putting into practice elaboration of agreements on prevention of dangerous military activities in the proximity of each other's border. Currently, the Russian Defense Ministry has concluded such agreements with the United States, Canada, China, and South Korea. Similar work is in progress with Japan and DPRK. In the future, we could consider creating a universal regional mechanism for prevention of dangerous military activities. The first step in this direction could be summarizing best practices of implementation of such agreements and spreading this information among the Asia-Pacific countries. In our view, voluntary transparency of military activities could be conducive to strengthening regional security. Notification of ongoing and forthcoming military exercises could be the first step to achieve this. As an example, I would like to recall the 2013 random operational readiness check of Russian Eastern Military District forces. Bearing no international obligation, in the spirit of goodwill, the Defense Ministry notified all our neighbors of this drill, its objectives and timelines. Mr. Chairman, for the third year in a row of the Russian Defense Ministry hosted the May Moscow Conference on International Security. We provide annual platform for free and informal consultations among military experts on the most topical issues of global and regional security. This year, just only a few days ago, the focus was on color revolutions, situation in the Middle East and North Africa, as well as in Afghanistan, threats and challenges stemming from those regions. We were quite pleased with the high level of interest to our forum. Over 300 guests from more than 40 countries and 5 international organizations participated in the conference. President Vladimir Putin and the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon addressed the conference with welcoming messages. It's important that military and diplomatic leaders and prominent experts from non-governmental organizations express their views from our tribune. Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, let me reiterate that the Ministry of Defense of Russia is open to substantial, constructive interaction with all countries in the interest of ensuring peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific region. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I'm sure there'll be a lot of debate about color revolutions, people power, and the way in which it applies in different parts of the world, including potentially even this region. I'm now opening the floor to short comments and questions. I'll take about 7 or 8 before returning to the panel. Let me remind people that there are 2 steps to get the floor. The first is to put your card into the slot. It's the second to press a button. When your microphone turns on green, it means that you're on my list. Your microphone is not on. And then when I recognize you, it will be on. So if you do want the floor, please take those 2 steps. The first person to catch my attention was from Japan, Dr. Chikaku Ueki. Your microphone is on.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I am delighted to have this opportunity to address General Wang. And if I may, I was a professor before I came to Waseda University. I was a professor at National Institute for Defense Studies in Tokyo, where I had the pleasure of teaching colonels of the People's Liberation Army. They were excellent students of mine, and the self-defense force officers were also excellent students of mine. And I ask this because I'm concerned about the situation in East China Sea. Please accept it as a question from a concerned former teacher of your officers and officers of Japan. Our 2 countries have done the groundwork on limiting the dangers of escalation and trying to manage crises. And mechanisms have been put in place at the ground level, but nothing further had been implemented, such as the hotline between China and Japan and the militaries. My first question is, I think it's important to put some of the political differences aside and go ahead with the mechanism so that the 2 services are not in danger. I would like to hear your opinion on that. This is something that Dr. Chipman has said as well. 2, in the meantime, however, while the mechanism is not in place yet, I think it's critically important that we understand the differences about rules of engagement. Some of the behaviors of the Chinese military forces and also government agency, but especially the military forces, the rules of engagement are not quite clear, especially in the EEZ, which we think of it as a high seas. So I would like you to clarify if there is a difference in the rules of engagement of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, and if you could clarify, I think that would be a big contribution to lessening the dangers of accidents and escalation. Number 3, I think there is an opacity of Chinese intentions, which is adding to the escalation. Please tell me what your instructions are, what your commands are to your soldiers in East China Sea, because I think that is something that our 2 countries cannot discuss at the moment, although the door is extended to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Wen Guangshao.
Thank you, Chairman. General Wang, given the strong message from the U.S. Secretary of Defense about the American plans to continue to enhance the forward employed posture and strengthen the defense alliance in the Asia-Pacific region, is there going to be a new naval arms race in the prospect? And will China respond by building up its defense alliance, for instance, with Russia, India, and other like-minded countries? The concern is that things would spiral out of control, creating undue expectations and commitments in both camps, leading eventually to the unintended consequence of a hot war, like what triggered the First World War. As the saying goes, when elephants fight, the grass will suffer.
Thank you. Francois Hidebourg?
Yes, my question is to Deputy Minister Antonov. Now, one major issue which involves Russia in East Asian affairs is the fate of what is called the South Kuril Islands, or in Japan, what is known as the Northern Territories. Now, in the past, attempts have been made to resolve this issue, notably in the 1950s, when the USSR proposed the return to Japan of some of the smaller islands as part of a post-World War II peace treaty. But this did not happen. Now, how does Moscow today view this issue at a time when Russia is seeking Eurasian alternatives to Europe, if I can put it in those words? And how would Russia's policy of a potential settlement with Japan on the Southern Kurils mesh in with China's claims vis-à-vis Japanese-controlled territory? And maybe General Wang would also have a view here. Thank you.
Sorry. From the US, Bonnie Glaser.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have two questions for General Wang. The first question is, you referred, and other speakers yesterday and today have referred to the Code of Unplanned Encounters at Sea, which is, I think, a very positive development in this region. I wonder whether China might be open to similar arrangements for law enforcement or Coast Guard vessels, again, multilaterally agreed on measures that would enhance operational safety in this region. My second question is that China last year announced an air defense identification zone in the East China Sea. And I wonder whether China sees the need for creating a similar ADIZ in the South China Sea. Under what circumstances might China seek to establish an ADIZ in the South China Sea? Thank you.
Thank you. And from India, Leela Punappa.
My question is to General Wang in the context of his statement about joint efforts to fight terrorism, extremism, and fundamentalism, both bilaterally and regionally. We are increasingly hearing about the terrorist attacks that have been taking place within China, and there is sufficient information in the public domain about the nature of the training and the movement of terrorist groups originating in the Pakistan-Afghanistan region. What specific steps is China taking to have the terrorist infrastructure in this area dismantled?
And from China, Lieutenant Colonel Lu Yin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, both of the speakers for your excellent speeches. My question goes to Mr. Antonov. I have learned that you have your experience and expertise in arms race and disarmament. According to the widely accepted concept of arms control and disarmament, development of a missile defense system destroys the strategic stability and stimulates arms race. Russia has been greatly concerned about the missile defense system. So is China. So my question is, what's your opinion in the development and the deployment of missile defense system globally? Thank you.
Thank you. Barry Desker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The tone of the speakers from the major powers at this year's Shangri-La Dialogue is a reminder of debates during the Cold War on strategic issues. My question to both speakers is, do you see a return to a Cold War between major powers in the Asia-Pacific and European theaters, regardless of which power is deemed to have initiated tensions?
Thank you. And from the UK, Aidan Foster Carter, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I have a specific question since I am a one-trick pony and I only do Korea. And I would like to ask both speakers how their countries are going to balance their respective diplomatic relations between North and South Korea going forward. That's a neutral way of putting it, but let's have some fun. How long are both China and Russia going to go on giving cover to a bandit kingdom which has betrayed any ideals, be they democratic, communist, and which is a menace to international order in ways I don't need to go into, and which every year refuses to come here, even though IISS invites them? Do you think that economic development will somehow defang, change, improve North Korea? I think both of your countries are pursuing policies which seem to suggest that. Do you think the six-party talks can ever begin again, now that the North Koreans, who are sometimes very clear and very honest, have said they are a nuclear power, they've written it into their constitution, it will never change? And finally, could I have explicit assurances from both countries, though I doubt I will get them, that you are prepared, given the clear and present danger on both of your borders, I don't need to remind you where North Korea is, that you are in fact discussing or will discuss any contingency that might arise, not that you want it to arise, but any contingency that might arise with the relevant neighbouring powers, particularly South Korea. Thank you.
Alexander Neil.
A question to General Wang. General, you referred to President Xi Jinping's Kika speech on the 21st of May, which appears to be a blueprint for President Xi's, how he envisions Asia-Pacific security for the foreseeable future. In that speech, he did mention that China is not prepared to tolerate alliances against third parties. And given your off-script comments just recently in your presentation, is it your view that the United States and Japan will be excluded from that vision?
And finally, in this round, Mark Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. A follow-up to the question posed by Aidan Foster Carter. Minister Antonov, you said the nexus between terrorism and WMD is the most dangerous threat. On this, Russia and the United States are in agreement. One of the nations on Russia's borders has explicitly spoken of the potential for transferring nuclear weapons to terrorist groups. A North Korean diplomat had said that once. And Aidan Foster Carter was asking about contingencies. Does Russia engage in contingency planning about the potential transfer of North Korean nuclear weapons to other parties?
Thank you. There's a number of comments and questions still to come from the floor. I hope to come back to you. I'd invite Deputy Minister Antonov to respond to the question about the four islands, missile defense, and DPRK nuclear weapons questions, maybe 3 minutes or so, and then to the 3 or 4 questions that were addressed to General Wang, if you could take about 5 minutes to respond to those, and then we'll have time to come back to the delegates. Minister Antonov.
Mr. Chairman, I have spent more than 1 year discussing the issue of missile defense with my American counterpart, Rose Gottemüller, during our negotiations. And by the way, we failed to find a consensus on this issue. So this issue is very delicate, and it could take the whole day. I understand how it is important for many countries, but I'll try to be brief, as you requested me. And I try to explain my colleagues, especially those who are not experts in this sphere. Whether we like or not, but nuclear deterrence is still alive. There is a path of life between nuclear powers. I just would like to give you a very simple example. There are two soldiers. They have swords. But suddenly, one soldier receives additional power, shield. So it means that capacity of that soldier will be increased. So what should we do to increase the ability or capability of the second soldier to make sword more stronger or to receive the same shield? So there is a, could I say so, game between nuclear powers. That's why there is an agreement. Please don't try to protect your nuclear deterrent forces, and there will be no war. We have concerns regarding the missile defense of United States and NATO countries in Europe, but the question was about the situation in South Pacific region. What we can see that this missile defense is contracting regardless the concerns which expressed by the Russian Federation and China. It seems to me that by the way, it's very important that we never said that we are against missile defense as a whole, used as general condition to make these defense capabilities as a general one. You said that we are against missile defense architecture which could undermine Russian strategic forces. If we are talking about the Pacific region, we can see that missile defense which is in progress and in which some countries, very important countries, are participating. I'm talking about Japan, Australia, maybe South Korea. We can see that this potential could nullify, for example, nuclear deterrence of China first, and they could, or maybe undercut the capabilities of Russia from the Far East region. So that's why we consider that it's not possible to increase defensive capabilities at the expense of another country. As I mentioned in my speech, that we're all equal. We have a lot to do to increase our defensive capabilities, and we should do it not undercutting the defensive capabilities of another countries. I understand that maybe I will not cover this question by all arguments, but it's rather difficult. I will be ready to continue discussion on this issue, for example, during the coffee break, and I will be in position to explain where we are with the United States, for example, in Europe or with the NATO countries. As to four islands, our relations with Japan, you know that this issue is on the top of agenda between our diplomats in Moscow and in Tokyo. We have spent many years trying to find this solution, and also in my speech I said that there is one of the problems which we face in South Pacific region, I mean long-standing territorial disputes. I don't want to add this problem to this one. I just would like to say you that we are in close dialogue with Japan on this issue due to some problems, international problems. Now at this stage, we have no progress, but I hope that our dialogue could be continued. And moreover, I am sure that in the future, today I cannot say you when it will be, but I am sure that after my retirement, we will find a solution of this issue, and we will continue developing relations between two countries. And third question, if you permit me, very short, about North Korea. Of course, we are very much concerned what is going on in North Korea when I'm talking about the problem of nuclear weapons. For us, it's impossible to imagine that a new country could be in our planet who can possess nuclear weapons. And Russia is a member of six-party talks, and we are trying to do our best to ease tension, to persuade North Korea to sit with us at the same table to deal with this issue. And moreover, what I would like to say you that we are in favor not just only denuclearize North Korea, but we would like to nuclearize the whole Korean peninsula. For us, it's very important. We don't want to see any possibility for anybody to deploy nuclear weapons in this territory. As to the discussion with the United States on North Korean military nuclear potential, of course, we are in close contacts. Our diplomats have some meetings, and we will continue. And I hope that altogether we can find a solution on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. General.
Dr. Chipman only gave me several minutes to answer questions, so I have to be very brief in my answers. First, I would like to speak about one issue. Against the background of globalization, economic activities of all countries in Asia-Pacific region, military activities of them are unprecedentedly extensive and dynamic. What concerns us are unexpected accidents. How to prevent such accidents? I think Asia-Pacific countries have the responsibility and obligation to make efforts. I think, firstly, Asia-Pacific countries at different levels, in particular at the medium or high levels, should have frequent exchanges and consultations, increase strategic mutual trust, and reduce miscalculation and misjudgment. In this regard, China has made a lot of efforts. For example, as a military diplomat of China, I'm like a pilot flying frequently in the skies, having exchanges, sharing information with Asia-Pacific countries and regions. During my short stay for the Shangri-La Dialogue, I have 10 meetings to share information, increase mutual trust, and reduce misjudgment and miscalculation. Second, we need to formulate rules and norms so that when we encounter, we will have rules to abide by. This is very important. China is committed to formulate and observe rules in various areas with Asia-Pacific countries. In terms of military security, China is working with the United States to formulate two important mechanisms in military defense. First, mutual notification mechanism for important activities in the military field. Second, standards for military activities at open seas. China and the United States are working on these two mechanisms. I can report to you that major progress has been made on these two mechanisms. We are also formulating relevant rules and norms with Russia. And also we are working on some rules that are urgently needed with some other Asia-Pacific countries. For example, Together with countries, littoral countries of the South China Sea, we have formulated a declaration on the conduct of parties in the South China Sea, or DOC. And we are now working with the related countries to formulate a code of conduct in the South China Sea, or COC. We are very earnest and serious in formulating the related rules. In order to prevent accident and control risks and crises, it is very important to establish a contact or liaison mechanisms among countries in cases of emergencies. That is, when we have emergencies, we can find the right people to talk to. This is very necessary and important. Because of the time restraint, I cannot list all the emergency liaison mechanisms with the relevant countries, including the mechanism with Japan. So that is what I want to say on the first issue. Second, there could be a concern that in Asia-Pacific region, in particular among major countries, there is an accelerated momentum of military development. Whether there would be arms race or an atmosphere of the Cold War or the repeat of the situation in a Cold War. This is a question on the mind of people. I think a lot of changes have happened in the 21st century. All countries, big or small, have to conform to the historical trend and international environment. In Asia-Pacific region, we pursue friendly cooperation. With Russia, and our relations with Japan is not alliance but partners of coordination. We coordinate to maintain peace of the region and beyond. It is of particular importance that between China and the United States, we are working to build a new model of major country relationship. And in that same spirit, we are also trying to build a new model of military-to-military relations between China and the United States. Cooperation between China and the United States, including between the two militaries, we have a consensus. That is to continuously expand convergence of interests. And second, we need to control differences and disputes and gradually reduce them. And thirdly, to remove miscalculation and misjudgment in a timely fashion. I think to build a new model of major country relations, a new model of military-to-military relations between China and the United States is in the very interest of peace and security of Asia-Pacific and the whole world. You may have the impression that the delegates between China and the United States had debates or disputes. I think that is only natural as the two countries try to build a new model of major country relations. As two major countries in the world, apart from extensive common interests, it is only natural that we have differences and disputes. It is only natural. It is not anything strange or anything we should be afraid of. More importantly, we have this consensus to control our differences and disputes and gradually reduce our differences and disputes. We can speak out our views and positions regarding each other openly and candidly, and through discussions we can reduce our differences and disputes and actually miscalculations and misjudgments instead of disputes and differences can also be removed through discussions. Mr. Chipman reminded me that I'm almost running out of my time, but I would like to say that President Xi Jinping put forward the Asian security concept at the IISS-Asia Summit and put forward a building of an Asia security architecture. And some people are asking that whether such a concept will exclude non-regional countries. I think IISS is an open conference, and such worries are totally unnecessary. IISS welcomes and accepts contribution to the building of a security architecture in Asia. Due to time constraints, I can only say so much in my answers, and I look forward to further discussions with you in the future.
We'll actually take three or four, perhaps five more points, and then have a last word. So Dr. Masashi Nishihara from Japan, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is a question to General Wang. You mentioned about the speech President Xi Jinping made in Shanghai in May 21st. He said that actually the Asian security should be discussed and then promoted among Asians. That means he has suggested, I think, that no Americans. Now, is this the direction that China is going to move, as President Xi Jinping mentioned? In your speech, you have talked about the importance of ADMM Plus and participation in RIPAC and so forth, in which the United States is playing a very important role. And I'd like to see this, your explanation about the discrepancy between Mr. Xi Jinping's speech and your remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. William Chung.
Thank you, John. This question is for General Wang. Thank you, General, for coming to the dialogue. And I note that you said that China has resolved 12 out of 14 border disputes with your neighboring countries, and you have done dispute settlements with Vietnam in the Peipu Gulf. And so you said that we shouldn't talk, but demonstrate actions. Why don't I propose not just in addition to your new model of major power relations, that China has a new model of major-minor relations, relationships with relatively smaller countries. Why don't you, one, admit that there's together with Japan, admit that there's a dispute over the Diaoyu Islands and take it to third-party arbitration? And number two, towards ASEAN, why don't China clarify your 9-9 claim to the South China Sea according to UNCLOS principles and try to finalize the code of conduct as soon as possible, perhaps before the end of the year? Thank you.
Dr. Michael Fulilove from Australia.
Thank you. My question is for General Wang. General, given China's historical commitment to the principles of state sovereignty, territorial integrity and non-interference, which I know are very important to Chinese foreign policy, can I invite you to address Russia's behaviour towards Ukraine, a sovereign state on its border?
And from India, Vice Admiral Arap Singh.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the most popular panelist of this year's Shangri-La Dialogue, who scored the maximum number of hits in terms of questions, General Wang. General Wang, you said, sir, that all countries should enjoy equal opportunities with no one dominating. And you also mentioned a number of times in your speech today that the ocean, you refer to the Asia-Pacific countries, the ocean is meant to be serving people with equal opportunities, and that there should be no disputes in the maritime domain. My point is about the 9-dashed line. It defies the law of the sea treaty, it defies customary or traditional law. Because in classical international law, codified or customary, the ocean has never been and not meant to be territorial. So there cannot be a territorial dispute on the water. The last time the ocean was claimed to be territorial was in Mare Nostrum in Latin by the Roman Empire, which ended at 117 AD. Hugo Grotius made that wonderful epistle of Mare Liberum, which was codified finally by UNCLOS, and you have ratified it. So I just fail to understand, after ratifying the UNCLOS, how is it you've drawn a line over the water? And how can the littorals or others in the world, not just the Asia-Pacific, be at peace? Because this is common heritage of mankind, freedom of navigation has been accepted by you. Thank you.
Dr. Dana Allen.
My question is also to General Wang. In the speech from Secretary Hagel, to which you objected, the Secretary quoted George Marshall to the effect that the strength of a nation does not depend on its army, ships, and planes, but on the strength of its friends and allies. Secretary Hagel also quoted President Obama from last week, who spoke of America's, quote, hub of alliances unrivaled in the history of nations. My question, General, is why does the United States have so many allies, including in this region? And just to be clear, I'm not asking why does the US maintain these allies, but why do these countries choose to be allies of the United States?
And from India, P.S. Suranairana.
Thank you, Chairman. The question is addressed to General Wang. So you have spoken of security cooperation with India among other Asia-Pacific countries. What exactly do you have in mind in real terms? Is there any US focus in this regard? And second question is to both speakers. Russia, China, and India are having a trilateral. Is there a potential US factor? Will this trilateral Russia, China, India be seen as a balancer, potential balancer against the US? Thank you.
And from the Financial Times, Dimitri Sevastopoulou.
Thank you, John. Also for General Wang. On the 9-dash line, can you very simply just tell us what is the 9-dash line so that there's less misperceptions and people understand what it is? We don't know. Tell us. And secondly, you said China only responds to provocations. Can you tell us what provocation Vietnam made near the Paracels to force you to bring the CNOOC oil rig there at the in early May? Thank you.
And from Malaysia, Zurhan Mahasdia.
General Wang, you mentioned China doesn't undertake provocative action. I'm always wondering then, why is it always my friends in the Royal Malaysian Navy are scrabbling their ships to intercept yours in our waters?
One last question from European Union, Reinhard Bütikofer.
My question also goes to General Wang. You qualified Prime Minister Abe's concept of proactive pacifism as provocative. Now, a lot of representatives from different countries subscribe to that principle or welcomed it. Would you term that as provocative also? And if not, would you see that perhaps as echoing a certain perception of China's policies and actions? And what would that teach you about China's actions?
Thank you very much. There's about 11 or 12 people who still seek the floor, but I think I will close the list here. We have 10 minutes remaining in this session. I think what I would like to do is invite General Wang to address the questions posed to him. Many of them were about the 9-dash line. So while there were a lot of questions, at least 3 were on the 9-dash line, and there were 2 or 3 others on slightly related topics. So Mr. Antonov also has at least 2 specific questions aimed to him. So my arithmetic is that General Wang, you have 7 minutes, and Mr. Antonov has 2.5 minutes, and then I can conclude. General Wang.
Well, I have received so much attention from the audience. There are so many questions to me, and I'm really honored, and I'm happy to answer all your questions. But it's a pity that Dr. Chipman only gave me 7 minutes. But there are more than 7 questions that are directed to me, so I can only choose some of the major questions to answer, and I will be very brief in my answer because I only have 7 minutes. Then let me talk about the 9-dotted line. Well, Dr. Chipman said that most of the questions are related to the dotted line. It seems that he also wishes that I could answer or address the issue of the dotted line, so I will focus on that. Regarding the dotted line in South China Sea, in recent period, those who take the lead in asking China to explain the dotted line, it is the United States. In this session, after I gave a detailed answer to relevant questions, there are still such focus on dotted line. Many people may feel that by asking China to clarify the dotted line, they actually touch the soft point of China, and that makes China difficult to answer this question. This is not true. I'm not going to talk about historical process or jurisprudential or historical evidence because I only have a few minutes, and I like to ask for your understanding. I only want to list several facts, and I hope that you could form your understanding based on the facts that I'm going to lay out and to understand China's position on the dotted line in South China Sea. First, China's sovereignty and rights of administration in South China Sea are formed through the long journey of history. How long is that history? I would say over 2,000 years. From Han Dynasty, China discovered and gradually improved administration and management over certain islands in South China Sea, especially Nansha Islands. When is Han Dynasty? That dates back to 200 years BC. And today is 2014. Historical records, historical documents on that are ample.
I cannot list them now, and it would take days if you want to look at those historical records.
Second, on what circumstances did the Chinese government draw the dotted line? I would like to say to you that the Xisha Islands and Nansha Islands of China, as I said, in the past over 2,000 years have been under the jurisdiction of China, and they belong to China. It was only during the World War II the Japanese imperialists invaded China and occupied the Xisha and Nansha Islands of China. In 1946, the Chinese government, in accordance to the Cairo Declaration and Potsdam Proclamation, recovered from the Japanese invaders the sovereignty over the Xisha and Nansha Islands. After the return of the Xisha Islands and Nansha Islands to China, the Chinese government in 1948 drew and declared the dotted line. And they were recorded in the numerous historical documents and official maps published by many countries. If you may refer to those documents and maps for your judgment. About the Xisha Islands and Nansha Islands, over the long course of history, the neighboring countries had not challenged the sovereignty and jurisdiction of China over them. It was only after the 1970s related problems cropped up. An important reason for the appearance of related problems is that rich oil resources were discovered in the South China Sea. There were historical records to support my argument. You may look into those documents. Evidence. Third, UNCLOS took effect in 1994. China respects UNCLOS in China ratified UNCLOS. But I would like to draw your attention to the fact that UNCLOS took effect in 1994. But China's sovereignty and jurisdiction over islands in South China Sea actually were formulated over the past 2,000 years. And UNCLOS, which took place in 1994, do not have retrospective effect, and they could not have any effect on the sovereignty and jurisdiction of various countries over the relevant waters and islands. And the UN treaties and international law recognize the historical rights of countries over islands and waters. Fifth, UNCLOS does not apply to the adjustment to the sovereignty over islands and sea. The law related to sea is a large and complex system, not just the UNCLOS. Still another point, to a just sovereignty and sovereign rights and the jurisdiction of countries at sea does not only limit to UNCLOS. It is related to a huge body of the international law. It is not justified to only cite UNCLOS as evidence. China respects UNCLOS and abides by UNCLOS. And the United States has not yet ratified UNCLOS. Why is that? Because the United States thinks that UNCLOS is not beneficial to the United States in many areas. A country who has not ratified UNCLOS has been using UNCLOS as a pretext to criticize China. Will the United States abide by UNCLOS? The United States is only using it as a tool or weapon for its own interests, and it will discuss it when it is not useful for him. When will the United States join UNCLOS? Last point, China has ratified UNCLOS, and China has stated all along that to resolve disputes concerning the demarcation of waters and sovereignty of islands, China will engage in direct consultations and bilateral consultations with parties directly involved on the basis of international law. Some countries have resorted to international arbitration for the solution of disputes. But in 2006, China has made a reservation that of exception, and China will not accept arbitration regarding the military and sovereign disputes. You have historic documents there, and you can refer to those documents. China will continue to uphold this position, and in the future, China will exercise utmost sincerity and patience, engage with consultation and negotiation with parties directly involved in order to solve disputes regarding the sovereignty and demarcation of relevant waters and islands in the South China Sea.
You said that I would like to focus just only on a few questions and very briefly. First of all, you said that our discussions have shown us that during these days we have decided to concentrate on traditional challenges and threats. It's good, and maybe it's our disadvantage as well. You said that what we can see that today it's not high time for us to speak about disarmament, arms control, confidence building measures. Frankly, I looked at many statements. What I can see that many countries would like to increase military capabilities in this region. One country has said that he would like to increase military presence. Moreover, United States has said that America must lead. For me, frankly, it's not clear why United States has to lead. To lead what? To which direction? To nowhere? To increase tension between nations, or for disarmament? Frankly, I haven't received the answer for this question. That's why, by the way, I would like to react to one question regarding the Cold War rhetorics. Yes, I have paid attention that during these days, as well as previously, we have heard many elements from Cold War. Some countries start talking about sanctions, about the necessity to build up capability on the boundary of other countries. We can see how a crisis in one country, for example, in a European country, Ukraine, has created a lot of problems for us. You see that tension has been increased, and we have do a lot of to ease tension. Moreover, I'm sure that we have common challenges and threats. And today, Mr. Chairman, it seems to me that we paid not enough time for such new challenges and threats. I have mentioned nexus between terrorism and weapons of mass destruction. There was a question from audience. It seems to me that we have made a lot to create a reliable set to stop proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. It's very good that we have no evidence in this region of such effect, but we have to be cautious and we have to be prepared. And the United States, Russian Federation, China, and other countries did a lot of, but I'm sure that it's not enough and we have to continue. One more point, Mr. Chairman. You said that let's look at the situation in the Middle East and what kind of threats are coming or stemming from this region. Let's imagine we finish crisis in Syria or in other countries today. What's about thousands of terrorists who are there? What they will do? It's a lot of persons who came from Europe, from this region. They are equipped, they are trained, well-trained. And you see that we have to be prepared to face this issue, to tackle this problem. Maybe next time, Mr. Chairman, it's up to you, of course, you will find an opportunity to devote one section to those issues. And finally, you see that it seems to me that our conversation is very important, it's very useful. It gives us a good opportunity to listen to each other, to understand our position. And I would like to call my Australian colleague. If you would like to get real information about Russian behavior on the border with Ukraine, you can apply to my assistant. You will get CD and you will enjoy. Thank you.
Minister Antonov, General Wang, thank you very much for your addresses, for the exchange you've had with the delegates here. I think you and they have deserved the coffee break. Thank you very much indeed. We reconvene at 11:30 for the concluding session. Thank you very much.